So, starting at the back of our little car, I just took the spare tire out. We got jack handle. That's the thing when you do this, there's a lot of little parts of this car. Actually, and a lot of stuff that you don't need, won't use. Trunk's not too bad as far as full of junk. A few little things, nothing major. Grab a light here. Okay. Take a look in here. Okay. Alright. Sorry for the shake. Like I said, it's a pretty clean little car. There's not, look, there's metal. It's not just a big rusty hole. There's our battery, that's located. So, not too bad. I'm going to spend some time. I'm going to take these side panels off, the back panel. Get whatever that is. I guess it's a release for the rear seat and fold down. You got to take all that stuff off. We'll get everything off our deck lid, get our lights out, and we'll be back. Okay, it's been a couple of weeks, and we've been busy off and on working on this. We've got pretty much everything is out that's going to go out. I haven't done under the hood yet, other than air conditioning lines are off, but we're all deconstructed here. The only thing that's left is the wiring. It's no surprises. I've taken all the trim out. There's it's a very, very clean car. It's not rusty at all. There's absolutely no rust anywhere, which is good. But now the next thing that we're confronted with here in our project, this is just the logical order in which I do things, is the wiring. We got a lot of wiring here, and a lot of it is not, of any use at all anymore. The only things of vehicle, this is what we're going to use. We have the ignition switch out of the car, which I am going to reuse. I'm going to make a bracket for it and actually put it in the dash. The steering column is stripped off, and it's stripped off because this has the steering lock in it still, and we don't want any possibility of that lock coming out and engaging. But the main reason that we have to use this is for this right here, which is the immobilizer. This works on the chip in the key, so we have to use that key so the computer knows that everything's right. And that kind of stuff, it can be eliminated. But this is going to be a very simple build in a lot of ways. This switch is fine. It works. So I'm going to reuse it. I'm not going to go through, trying to figure out how to, bypass that and have all the issues associated with that. So like I say, it's very simple. And if there's something in here that we want to use and it's functioning and there's no problem with it, we're going to use it. As long as we can according to the rule book. We can retain our instrument cluster. We could have actually left the whole dash in there, but I got rid of that. I've tried to take out anything for the most part that's going to be, flammable. That's the main reason for taking most of this off trim. There's still there's some rubber, plugs and grommets over there. Those are all going to go away when we do the wiring. There's still, the sound deadening stuff on the floor in a couple places. That I'm not really super worried about that stuff. It's people do scrape that out, and they do it more of saving a little weight of anything. All the seam sealer and stuff like that, they'll scrape out. I'm not that concerned with any of that. So I think we'll leave that. We'll have to take out a little bit of it when we get welding to our floor for our support and cage and stuff. Of course, the shifting mechanism here is essentially made out of plastic, and that'll stay. Got to have that. But everything electrically that I want to work on the car right now is working. This works. The car runs. I have our lighting switch here is still connected because I want to have I want to be able to use the dash lights in here. And the main reason that I want to reuse this cluster, I don't really care about the speedometer, but seeing that we are using the factory fuel system, we don't have to put a fuel cell in this car as long as the way that it's written, the fuel tank is in front of the rear axle, which it is. I mean, the fuel tank is under here, okay? There's our wiring over there that goes down to our pump and sending it and all that stuff. So the rear axle, comes across here. The fuel tank is down under here. So as long as the fuel tank is in front of the rear axle, which it is, it's perfectly legal and you can run it. And it's actually safe. I mean, it's not really an issue. The tanks on these cars are, as long as the straps are good and it's supported good, there's no issue with that. And it is the pump is in the tank, the fuel pump and everything like that. So we're just going to simplify it and we're going to leave it alone and we're going to use it. So with using that, it's going to be kind of handy to actually have a functioning fuel gauge, which we already have and it works, so why not use it? And that will also give us a tachometer here. So the only thing I'm going to add to this as we go is I will add a mechanical oil pressure gauge and a mechanical temperature gauge. I do like to kind of keep track of those two things. And then we have our tachometer and we will have a gas indication. So that's what we're going to use there. And like I say, we have to retain. Probably I will not use this switch. I'll just figure out which couple wires here I can just put a toggle switch on to turn our illumination lights on. And I do have the little dimmer thing for them is still here. It works. Like I say, and that all functions. So that's good. The other thing that we want to function right here this little unit you can see in here, this car has electric power steering. So we want to retain that, of course. So that's all wired up and that functions okay. So with that being said, and how the process that I use with our wiring is, it's a little tedious, but I'll start back here, because everything is currently hooked up and functioning that I want to have function. But you notice, like back here, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, is unplugged. And if it's something that's unplugged now, it's something we're not using. Most of this stuff back here is rear lighting, and you know, like the stereo stuff up there in the package tray. But we do have some things that come off of our battery connections. But we got, you know, going forward, you know, battery lead there. It's grounded right here at the battery, this little bracket. But we got this little deal right here, which is some kind of an inductive pickup off the ground cable. I have no idea what that does. So with that in mind, I'm just going to leave it alone. We got this guy that comes over here, goes in, 50 amp main fuse here. All this stuff I'm going to retain, but as you can see, it kind of goes down to this, and then it becomes a lot of other things. And the same, like on this side, it's kind of the same thing. So we'll open up these harnesses, and we're going to separate everything. We're going to segregate the stuff we don't need and the stuff that we want. Like, we have to keep all the wiring that's going down to our, you know, fuel tank and pump and everything. Like a lot of this here, see, we don't need. So we'll be eliminating that basically one by one. I will caution anybody that's doing this, just don't go all, you know, caveman on this with, you know, wire cutters and start hacking stuff out, because, you know, before you know it, you're going to have stuff that doesn't work. That's why it just goes slow, methodical, eliminate what you don't need and keep what you want. So it's a slow process. Like, for instance, here, this connector here went to the airbag control module. A lot of wires in there, none of which basically are going to do anything for us. But we got to go through and make sure that it doesn't, you know, tie in with something that we do want to use in one of our other harnesses. So that's why I start at one end, I work my way forward, slowly, methodically, eliminate what we don't need. Because a lot of the stuff, with us using the lighting and the instrument cluster, I'm going to have to mount that guy probably up under the dash somewhere. That's our body control module. See, a lot of the functions will go through that that we want to work, so we're going to have to retain that. And we want it as simple as possible, but we still want, I want to have the indicator for the park and brake, so I want that to still work. So like I say, that ties in with this harness, so that's got to be separated out. A lot of this can probably go away, but some of it's got to stay. And once we get everything segregated, of course, a lot of stuff over there. But, you know, a lot of stuff's got to stay, and that's okay, because we got, you know, control modules for like the steering and things like that. We're fortunate in one way, because this is like I say, it's a very simple car. It had roll-up windows. It did not have, there's no ABS brakes. It didn't have cruise. It didn't have any of that stuff. So it did have air conditioning, but like, as you can see, we removed the air conditioning and heat, all that, cleaned it right down. So the plan is, oh, and the other thing is these. When you get working on these cars, what I've found in the past And like I say, this is the first Cobalt I've ever worked on, but I mean, it's not really that different. When you're working on these cars, be careful of this. Here you have 2 bundles of wires that are ground right here. And there's several ground points through the car. You got, you know, this one here. I think there was 3 batches of them involved with the dashboard. You've got, you know, more here. I never mess with the ground points. I always leave them alone and maintain them, because these cars are kind of funny, and you don't necessarily know what is looking where for its ground path. And you may very well have something up in the engine bay that, in the infinite wisdom of whoever designed all this stuff, has it grounded back here. You never know. So I just leave them alone. I don't even go down that road. What I will do here is I will probably take these off and I'll reverse them. I'll put them under the panel, so they're not just sticking out right here, and they'll get all the stuff off of here. But so be careful with the grounds. Like I say, I've always found it best to just keep them. Don't start eliminating grounds, because it can cause other problems and issues as you're going through. You notice I got the doors off. I took the doors off for the simple reason is they're in the way, and they've got to be gutted out anyways. So I just take them off, get them out of the way for we're doing this, and they'll go back on at some point. The one thing that is plastic and rubber that I did leave was this little threshold plate right here, because out here it's got this rubber seal that goes to the bottom of the door. And the one thing that's a pain when you gut everything out and gut the door, and now you've got the front wheel that throws up stuff, and it ends up inside the car. It goes under the door and around there. So I'm going to leave these. Yes, they will burn, but I don't know. I think it's worth an acceptable risk for those little pieces. Again, they're on both sides, but that'll seal the door up. We won't have stuff getting thrown into the car. And when the door is on, it's hidden too. You can't see it. It's actually under the door itself. So we'll leave those. And like I said, I still have stuff to take out under the hood. I still have the front lights. I got the air conditioning compressor, the air conditioning condenser. Like I said, I do have the lines off. The heater is just looped to, bypass that on the connections. And that's it. Like I say, it's very, very simple. The fuel system makes this a lot easier, not having to deal with all that. So we're just going along. We're taking the time, and I'm trying to do it in such a way that doesn't create any more work. The hardest part of this so far for me, and I didn't really take, because that was a few minutes here, an hour there, I didn't film any of this, because this is essentially just taking things apart. It's not anything special, and if you're building something like this, if you can't figure out how to take it apart, this is probably not something you should be doing. This is not the job for you. So that's the easy part. The part that I actually have a hard time with is the windows, the glued-in windows. I just struggle with those. So I ended up, I've got a special tool, which is kind of a funny tool because it resembles a ball peen hammer and a shop vac. And that's how I take these windows out. I've spent tons of time before, cutting them out and putting on Craigslist and trying to sell them. Nobody ever buys them, and they end up throwing them away anyway. So I just got to the point, it's like, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I just smack it, vacuum it up, throw it over the dump, be done with it. And so that gets all the glass out of it. So we're getting there, and I I've still got half of the dashboard and all the stuff that goes underneath that you know the dash mounts to, because I'm going to have to incorporate something here. I want to get everything up inside something, and I want covering over the top of it so it stays dry and it doesn't get wet. Just something to think there. And we're going to have to make some kind of a cowl panel to go in here to seal the back of the hood. Because if you look, we can, hopefully it's picking up on camera, you can look straight out through the hood. See, that's out in the front. And the problem with that is you get going along, something happens in the motor and it starts, you know, something ruptures, it starts spraying oil. You want this blocked off so that oil's not coming back and spraying you. It only has to be, you know, halfway across here, and that would be, you know, fine. But I got to put something in there for that. And the rules actually do state that I actually have to put a Lexan splash shield behind the seat. So anything that splashes up from the back can't do that. And the battery will have to be covered as well. The one thing that I did check quickly, just messed with it for a few minutes. Like I told you before, I started working on, you know, other cars. I made this main hoop for well, the Black Mustang. I was actually starting to work on the Black Mustang. I made this main hoop for it, and it actually fits this car like a glove. So I'm gonna use that, and that will save a bunch right there because I've already got that made. That's the main hoop that will go in the back behind the driver's seat. Everything is built off of that for the cage. But we got a ways to go before we get into that. We gotta clean up this wiring. We will paint the inside of here once we get that cleaned up. I'll paint it, I don't know, I usually paint like a lighter color, like a light gray or something like that for the interior. It makes it more visible and easier to see things at night in the dark, especially with a black car. So we'll do that. So that's where we're at. That's what we're doing. We're going to work on this, and I will be back when I have some more progress to show. So until then, take it easy.